Elon Musk just threatened to kill Dragon. NASA is panicking. Dream Chaser just destroyed SpaceX with runway landings. But how is this even possible? Dragon crashes into ocean at 25 miles per hour. Dream Chaser lands like a fighter jet. Why did NASA bet everything on one man? Here's the shocking truth. Dragon flies at only 60% capacity. Dream Chaser? 33 cubic meters. Did NASA just find SpaceX's replacement? Let's dive right in. Here's exactly what went down. Elon Musk was absolutely furious when Trump suggested cutting SpaceX's government contracts. His response? A nuclear threat that paralyzed the entire space industry? SpaceX will begin decommissioning its Dragon spacecraft immediately. The panic was instant. Why? Because NASA had made the most dangerous mistake in space history. They put all their eggs in one basket. Dragon wasn't just important, it was literally America's only ticket to space. But here's where it gets crazy. The very next day, Musk deleted the tweet. Someone had warned him this Cold War would benefit nobody. His reply? Good advice. Okay, we won't decommission Dragon. The damage was done. NASA's terrified silence spoke volumes. They couldn't even comment because they knew the truth. If Musk followed through, America's space program would collapse overnight. But this Twitter meltdown revealed something NASA never wanted you to know. While everyone obsessed over SpaceX's dominance, Sierra Space was quietly building something revolutionary. Dream Chaser isn't just another spacecraft. It's everything Dragon wishes it could be. The numbers are shocking. Dragon's pressurized capsule? Just 9.3 cubic meters. Dream Chaser with its shooting star module? A massive 33 cubic meters. That's nearly 4 times more space for critical experiments. But here's the kicker that nobody talks about. Dragon has never, and I mean never, flown at more than 60% of its cargo capacity. Why? Because its cramped design can't utilize the full payload potential. It's like having a massive truck, but only using the glove compartment for storage. Dream Chaser demolishes this limitation. Every single cubic meter of that 33-meter volume can be fully utilized. We're talking about a 500% increase in space efficiency compared to Dragon's wasted potential. The access system tells the whole story. Dragon's tiny side hatch creates a bottleneck for everything. Dream Chaser's rear access? It's like comparing a narrow doorway to a warehouse loading dock. But the real game changer is how these spacecraft return to Earth. Picture Dragon's return. It comes screaming back at 25 miles per hour, slamming into the ocean with enough force to shatter delicate experiments. Saltwater floods every system. Critical research samples worth millions? Destroyed. The recovery operation is a nightmare. Specialized ships, recovery crews, weeks of refurbishment. The saltwater corrosion affects every component. Heat shield tiles need replacement. Electronics get fried. We're talking months of downtime and millions in costs. Now watch Dream Chaser. It glides down like a fighter jet, touching down smoothly on any standard runway. No violent impact, no saltwater damage, no complex recovery operation. Precious cargo arrives in perfect condition. The flexibility is mind-blowing. Dream Chaser can land on any runway, 8,000 feet long. That's thousands of airports worldwide. Dragon? It needs a specific ocean zone, perfect weather, and a fleet of recovery ships. But here's the part that could literally save astronaut lives. In a medical emergency, Dragon takes hours to splash down and be recovered. Dream Chaser, it can divert to the nearest airport and land within minutes. For a crew member having a heart attack, those minutes mean the difference between life and death. The thermal protection system proves Dream Chaser's superiority. Dragon uses thousands of tiny, complex heat tiles. Dream Chaser uses about 2,000 larger tiles, simpler installation, fewer failure points, and it handles re-entry temperatures up to 1,650 degrees Celsius. Yet despite these massive advantages, there's a terrifying problem. Here's where the story gets devastating. Dream Chaser was supposed to launch in late 2023. We're now looking at late 2025, a 2-year delay. What happened? The spacecraft, named Tenacity, has been sitting at Kennedy Space Center since May 2024, ready to fly. But there's a bottleneck nobody saw coming. Dream Chaser launches on ULA's Vulcan Centaur rocket. The problem? The U.S. Space Force is forcing ULA to prioritize military certification over everything else. Instead of flying Dream Chaser, ULA ran dummy payload tests to satisfy Pentagon requirements. With a massive backlog of military launches, Dream Chaser keeps getting pushed further down the line. Sierra Space had a backup plan, ULA's reliable Atlas V. But here's the cruel twist. ULA stopped producing Atlas V in 2024. Only 14 launches remain for existing commitments. Dream Chaser's chances of grabbing one? Zero. This creates a nightmare scenario. The ISS shuts down in 2030. If Dragon stops flying today, Dream Chaser isn't ready. NASA would crawl back to Russia, paying $86 million per seat on cramped Soyuz capsules. The geopolitical humiliation would be complete. After 2022's tensions, depending on Russia feels like surrendering America's space leadership. But there's an even bigger crisis brewing. The Musk incident exposed a terrifying reality. America's entire space program depends on one man's Twitter mood. Dragon has made over 50 trips to the ISS. But what happens when that lifeline vanishes? Soyuz only carries 3 people, usually 2 Russians and 1 American. Dragon carries 7. We're talking about a skeleton crew on the ISS. Less crew means less science, less research, less progress. The financial devastation is staggering. NASA paid up to $86 million per Soyuz seat. Dragon costs $55 to $88 million per seat, but carries more people, making it dramatically cheaper per astronaut. Here's the most shocking part. NASA contracted SpaceX to deorbit the ISS. If Dragon gets canceled, NASA needs a completely new way to safely crash the 400-ton station without hitting populated areas. Private space stations like Blue Origin's Orbital Reef are years away. Without Dragon, America's space access could collapse overnight, but Dream Chaser offers a path to freedom. Dream Chaser uses lifting body design, technology NASA pioneered in the 1960s, but never properly implemented. This isn't experimental, it's proven technology finally done right. The cargo advantage is revolutionary. Dragon's unpressurized trunk carries 37 cubic meters, but it's exposed to space vacuum. Only non-sensitive equipment survives. Dream Chaser's entire 33 cubic meters is pressurized and protected. For delicate experiments, this changes everything. Protein crystals grown in microgravity, biological samples, sensitive electronics. They all require stable, pressurized environments. Dragon's violent splashdown destroys irreplaceable research worth millions. Dream Chaser's smooth runway landing preserves every experiment. Months of space research arrive on Earth in perfect condition. We're talking about potentially life-saving medical breakthroughs that Dragon routinely destroys. The international flexibility is game-changing. European experiments can reach German labs within hours. Japanese research arrives in Tokyo the same day. Dragon's ocean recovery adds weeks of shipping delays, often rendering time-sensitive samples useless. Dream Chaser's operational cost will demolish Dragon's economics. Why? Reusability without extensive refurbishment. Dragon capsules need massive overhauls after ocean landings. Saltwater corrosion, impact damage, electronic replacements. The refurbishment takes months and costs millions. The recovery operation alone requires specialized ships and crews. Dream Chaser lands on runways and can be refueled for the next mission within weeks. No saltwater damage, no violent impacts, no complex recovery, just routine aircraft-style maintenance. The cargo efficiency translates to massive savings. Dream Chaser carries 5.5 tons total, with 5 tons pressurized. Dragon hauls 6 tons, but only 3 tons pressurized. For missions requiring pressurized cargo, which is most ISS research, Dream Chaser delivers 67% more payload per flight. This advantage explodes when commercial space stations come online. Multiple destinations requiring regular supply runs, Dream Chaser's runway flexibility becomes unstoppable. The ISS shuts down in 2030. That's just 5 years to establish reliable alternatives. Dream Chaser's delays aren't just inconvenient, they're potentially catastrophic. If Dream Chaser launches in late 2025 and proves successful, it gets 4 years to establish credibility before ISS shutdown. That's barely enough time to work out bugs and prove reliability. But here's the twist. Commercial space stations are accelerating faster than expected. Blue Origin's orbital reef, Axiom's modules, multiple private stations, they'll all need regular cargo transport. Dragon's ocean recovery becomes a logistics nightmare with multiple destinations. Maintaining recovery fleets for several space stations? Prohibitively expensive. Dream Chaser's airport compatibility makes it perfect for this new era. It can serve multiple stations, conduct point-to-point delivery, even support space tourism with equal efficiency. The question isn't whether Dream Chaser will replace Dragon, it's whether it arrives in time to matter. With SpaceX's track record and Musk's unpredictable behavior, NASA desperately needs alternatives. Every day Dream Chaser sits grounded, America's space independence slips further away. The next 2 years will determine whether we break free from the dangerous dependency on one man's whims, or watch our space leadership crumble when that dependency inevitably fails. The clock is ticking, and America's future in space hangs in the balance. So here we are. SpaceX built an empire on Dragon's success, but empires fall when they depend on single points of failure. Dream Chaser isn't just competing with Dragon, it's exposing the dangerous game NASA has been playing. The runway landings, the cargo efficiency, the operational flexibility, these aren't just technical improvements. They're America's insurance policy against the chaos of depending on one man's Twitter mood. But here's what really keeps me up at night. We're watching the future of human spaceflight unfold in real time. Will Dream Chaser arrive soon enough to break NASA's deadly dependency? Or will America's space program remain hostage to the unpredictable whims of a single billionaire? The next launch could change everything. The next delay could cost us decades. What do you think? Is Dream Chaser humanity's backup plan, or are we already too late? Let me know in the comments. And if you're as obsessed with space as I am, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Every rocket company burns kerosene or hydrogen. SpaceX shows up with methane and absolutely destroys them. Traditional engines are covered in toxic soot after each flight. Raptor engines? Spotless inside after firing. Methane just humiliated every rocket fuel on Earth. Here's how they did it. Let's dive right in. But here's what everyone missed. SpaceX wasn't just changing fuel. They were about to embarrass every rocket company on Earth. Picture this scene from 2010. NASA engineers are celebrating another successful space shuttle mission, but behind closed doors, they're dealing with a nightmare nobody talks about. Every single hydrogen-powered engine requires massive cleanup after flight. The fuel is so cold it could literally freeze your oxygen supply solid. Storage tanks need insulation thicker than your car. And if anything goes wrong, the entire system becomes a ticking time bomb. Meanwhile, Boeing and Lockheed Martin are burning kerosene in their rockets. Sounds simple, right? Wrong. After every flight, toxic black soot coats the inside of their engines like tar. Engineers spend days scrubbing this garbage out with industrial cleaners. It's like trying to clean a chimney that's been burning dirty coal for hours. But here's the kicker. Everyone in the industry knew these problems existed. They just accepted them as the cost of doing business. Then SpaceX shows up with methane and changes everything overnight. When SpaceX announced Raptor would burn methane, rocket engineers literally laughed. Those Tesla guys don't understand rockets, they said. Stick to making cars. Big mistake. The first time a Raptor engine fired, something impossible happened. After the test, engineers walked over to inspect the engine. They looked inside the nozzle, expecting the usual mess. Nothing. Completely spotless, like it had never been fired. How is that even possible? Remember, this is an engine that just burns several tons of fuel in seconds. Traditional engines would be coated in residue. But methane? It burns so clean it's like it disappears. Think about your kitchen stove. Natural gas burns clean. No smoke, no soot. Now imagine that same clean burn, but scaled up to produce enough thrust to launch a skyscraper into space. That's when the industry realized they had a problem. But clean burning was just the beginning of methane's secret weapons. Here's where it gets technical, but stick with me because this changes everything. Every rocket fuel has a boiling point, the temperature where it turns from liquid to gas. Keep fuel liquid, and you can store massive amounts in small tanks. Let it turn to gas, and you need warehouse-sized containers. Hydrogen boils at negative 423 degrees Fahrenheit. That's colder than the surface of Pluto. To store hydrogen, you need insulation systems that make a thermos bottle look primitive. NASA spent billions perfecting these systems, and they still lose fuel to boil off constantly. Kerosene, on the other hand, stays liquid at room temperature. Easy to store, but